This is iCastNews.com, live and direct from United Nations headquarters in New York City, USA. And this is heat in the Middle East. It's a sad, somber, and deadly anniversary. 8 years ago, a civil war started in Syria. In that time, somewhere between 465,000 and 500,000 people have died. In that time, the world has again, for the first time since, really on a massive scale, since the First World War, seen the use of chemical weapons, particularly the noxious sarin gas. Since that time, Europe has been, in some ways, if not destabilized, then discomforted. Nationalism is on the rise as countries, Great Britain, France, Italy, Germany, all are dealing with what to do with the refugees who are streaming in, migrants who are coming in large numbers as a result of a war that has sent millions out of what was once one of the more civilized places in the Middle East, Syria. In addition, although civil wars tend to have, they tend to have an expiration date. 5 to 10 years. Some last 5 years, some last 10 years. 8 years, it looks like the last stages of the war are commencing, but they're extremely bloody. The battle for East Ghouta has been going on for the past 3 or 4 weeks. A United Nations resolution was unable to stop the war, in large measure because Bashar al-Assad wants to finish off the pockets of resistance in East Ghouta, a place where the rebellion against him started. So he's fomenting a kind of what we might call Rattenkrieg. That's the term the Germans used, Rattenkrieg, for the war in Stalingrad. Except this Rattenkrieg, Rats War, is using cell phones, drones, sophisticated modern jets, barrel bombs, poison gas, and outright cruelty to crush and kill the people of East Ghouta. Julius Caesar said, Gaul divus tres partes. Gaul is divided in 3 parts. And now Bashar Assad has separated East Ghouta into 3 parts, and he's squeezing each part out. This may be the final agony of a city. This may produce 400,000 refugees. The UN sanctions, the UN declarations have done nothing. Today, however, in one part of the city, thanks to the Russian military, which created its own bombing pause and fighting pause, humanitarian aid was delivered to one part of the city. We've heard that somewhere near 11,000 people, according to the Russian military, have escaped, heading towards Damascus and out of the city. But that means there's still 400,000 people who, in the crushing Rats War, may turn themselves into people who have nothing to eat but rats, and will scurry out of the rubble like rats. And as the war enters its last stages, America's ally, Turkey in the north, is sending in their troops into Afrin. 10,000 people were said to have been fleeing out of Afrin in one day. The Turks have said they will not give back this territory to their rivals, the Kurds. And so the dismemberment and the destabilization of the Middle East continues apace. Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, has said Syria is bleeding inside and out. The new Secretary General had to tell the Security Council that in his first year in office, more children were killed in the Syrian war than in any other year of this 8-year war. Syria is a bleeding wound with lots of consequences, and the worst consequences may yet be ahead, because there are plenty of people who've gone to fight there to learn how to be first-class terrorists, battle-hardened veterans. And when the war does end, some of these people will be going back to fight for Chechnya or to fight as Muslim terrorists in Afghanistan or in Pakistan. And so the consequences of this horrible civil war will have a very long half-life and will continue to haunt the world. A world that even through its best offices, when it was able to get most of the chemical weapons out of the country, thanks to the good work of Sergei Lavrov and former Secretary of State John Kerry, who should have both gotten a Nobel Prize, Peace Prize, for what they did in destroying chemical weapons, along with their Dutch and other colleagues who helped implement it. However much there has been progress and use of diplomacy, this war is a bleeding, horrific, savage insult to the body of civilization. And it will continue to be. And it continues to show the absolute powerlessness of the Security Council to regulate some questions of war and peace. For iCastNews.com, live from United Nations headquarters in New York City, USA, for Heat in the Middle East, I'm Jonathan Sanders.